Ladies and gentlemen.
Uh-oh.
It's time for the Early Bird Special. Bringing you the best stories from the world of sports and sports entertainment. Now, here are your hosts, Sparky and Burdick.
Good Friday morning, Bakersfield, surrounding communities, and everybody watching online on YouTube and Twitch. This is the Early Bird Special. I'm Chris Burdick. That is Sparky. Sparky, good morning, my friend.
Happy Friday.
Happy Fantasy Friday. Let them know what they're in for.
Yes, Fantasy Friday it is. We'll get some NFL news out of the way, then we'll jump into the second edition of Fantasy Friday, where we'll run down our top 12 running backs in fantasy, plus we'll throw in some sleepers. Then we'll have our boy Chris Flail, local comedian, joining us at 8 o'clock. And then if we have some time, we'll get into AP's all-time All-American list that was released yesterday. And we have one more pair of tickets to Bakersfield Brunch Fest coming up Saturday, October 11th at the Kern County Fairgrounds. And you can jump in the running by texting in anytime during the show, 661-842-2000.
And again, I've been harping this all week. You want to go to this event. You really, really do. October 11th, the weather is going to be perfect. The food is fantastic. The drinks are great. Make sure you get an Uber ride because you probably are going to need one. It's sneaky. I'm going to tell you right now. There are some sneakily good drinks, and they will let you get drunk a little bit. Now, don't get hammered. That's not what this is about.
There's always that one hammered guy. Don't be that guy.
Well, yeah. There's always somebody that thinks they can handle their liquor but can't. But it's okay. We can help you out. We'll get you an Uber ride home, and everybody will be home safely. It's a great event. Everybody has a great time at this one. And to be honest with you, you'll leave full. You'll leave happy. And who doesn't like a brunch? Who doesn't like brunch?
I'd take some brunch right now.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, we talked about the other day. We'll eat breakfast for dinner.
Yes.
I grew up doing that.
That's
so maybe I'm weird in that
favorites.
area, but I feel like breakfast food is good any time of the day.
All day.
Especially since technically it's mostly sugar anyway, right? I mean, we can get into that at a different time, but we got plenty to talk about in the world of sports. Let's start in the NFL as we have all week. We have some positive news for the Browns, I guess. Well, now this is positive news for the situation, but it's kind of coming down in a weird way. So rookie running back Quinston Johnson, former Ohio State prospect, will be let go, or I'm sorry, is not being charged with any of the battery charges that were coming up in the domestic incident that happened in South Florida a couple months ago.
Prosecutors said no video surveillance, no independent witnesses, inconsistent stories between photos and footage, and he's cleared.
He's cleared. That's what I'm saying. It's a good thing for the Browns. Obviously, they can now sign the second-round draft pick, have him join them at training camp, and we're all hunky-dory. He gets started with the year, hopefully becomes the starting running back at some point in the year and starts his career off on the right foot. I say meh because...
Did he make your list?
No, not at all, honestly. But that's neither here nor there.
Do you think
expect much.
You think he gets reps this year?
Oh, yeah, 100%. They don't have anybody at running back anymore with Nick Chubb not in the room. And don't get me wrong, Ford was great last year, but he was inconsistent. They drafted 2 running backs for a reason. And it's going to be a by committee situation. So I think that at this point, not right away, but I think he, much like Shedeur Sanders, inevitably is going to be your starting running back in Cleveland. He's that much of a talent. He really is.
There is some news said the NFL may still give him a suspension, even though that he was cleared.
Yeah.
That's usually something that they give him a game or two and then they reduce it to a fine or something. But
well, that's what I was going to get to is the meh part of it.
Yeah.
Was you still may have a suspension here for a week or two, like Sparky just said, but I highly doubt it. I mean, if he hasn't had any history of this kind of a thing, and to be honest with you, like the report said, no witnesses, inconsistent evidence. I mean, from what we heard is that the woman came forward 5 days after the incident took place. She was struck in the mouth, arm, and thigh, in which she took pictures of the bruising, But also there are pictures showing inconsistency with that happened in between those 5 days where she didn't have bruising. So this is one of those situations where I feel like it's more of a, like we said with Shohei Ohtani, be careful who you surround yourself with, because these people don't really care about you sometimes. They just care about what they can get from you. And unfortunately, I think he just kind of stepped in this one situation. Thank God it popped up where nothing is going to be filed in terms of charges. So I expect him to sign his deal with the Browns and get to work. But how good he's going to be is still up in the air. I think he could be the starting running back in Cleveland, though, as I said earlier.
Well, my meh story was the other guy that signed with the Browns yesterday, former Texas wide receiver Isaiah Bond, and he's also been cleared of charges. Now, this one is a bit crazy. I know that those, just like most a couple days before the draft or a week or so before the draft, these pop-up stories come up, and usually I remember going back to Laramie Tunsil with his mask, but this one gets a little bit dirtier. He was dealing with a sexual assault case, and they threw out the charges yesterday. Now he is able to sign with any team, and he tweeted yesterday that he will be signing with the Cleveland Browns. Now, that offense has got some weapons. I don't know how quick he'll be able to jump in and fight for a spot, but do you think this guy makes the 53?
He'll probably make the 53, but like you said, I don't know how much we see of him in the season. But I think this is more a testament to what we talked about the other day when it came to the Cleveland Browns, especially when it comes to guys like Deshaun Watson or a lot of these other players. You're starting to see it when, in terms of the ownership, what I was talking about when we're talking about Deshaun, this organization's all about second chances and letting people kind of come back from that. Except for Josh Gordon, apparently.
Yeah. His weed is just worse
weed
than all of
is
this.
so terrible.
But they already got the orange jumpsuit, so
that's just, again, I don't expect much from the move itself. I think this is going to be a great way to build some more depth in the room, obviously, but I don't expect to see him as the major star of this team, not with guys like Jerry Jeudy obviously catching footballs.
Teams, steered away from drafting him late in the draft.
Right.
And this year they threw out the supplemental draft, so he wasn't selected in that. So he gets his second chance and he goes to the Cleveland Browns.
As much as, well, as many others have in the last couple of years. But again, when it comes to the Cleveland Browns, all anybody has been talking about is the quarterback room, right? So we still need to figure out what's going on there, who's going to be the starter, at least long term. We expect Joe Flacco to at least be the starter for the first, what would you say, 4 weeks?
At least
5 weeks, something in that
depending
area.
on how he plays, but
yeah, depending on how successful they are, potentially stretching that out, because we all know Joe Flacco can play football.
Yeah, and we've seen the rough start of the schedule for Cleveland, so
they have talent all across. Like you just said, they have talent across the board on this roster. It's just more about keeping them healthy, keeping them out of trouble, and making the offense and defense mesh together and work. So when you come out this season going up against a division rival in the Cincinnati Bengals, especially a Cincinnati Bengals team that starts notoriously slow, I would expect you to come out and pop them in the mouth and hopefully get that 1-0 record and move on with the rest of your season. Because that's really what's going to set the tone for you, is that week 1 matchup.
I'm listening to The Miz the last day or so with Rich Eisen. He's kind of got me thinking
great,
the Browns might be better.
He's fantastic. He's a diehard Cleveland fan.
He's really good
across the board. So I always enjoy it because I hear somebody from the Cleveland Cavaliers, which I have from the last 2 days. And I love that. One thing, though, and again, he's got more money than I've ever seen in my life. So I can't talk. But camo suit with a white, really? Like, that looked interesting. I know they gave him grief for it at the beginning of the show.
Yeah, after you showed me, I went
rightfully
and took a picture of it. I'm like, I sent it to my wife. You think I could pull this off?
I don't even think Seth Rollins would wear something like that. Like, I'm sitting here looking at him like, whoa, dude. Like, John Cena can't be seen, but that is way too I can't unsee that. That's just the worst part about it. But it's been a fantastic show on the Rich Eisen Show. Highly recommend you check it out right after ours here at 9 o'clock.
Well, between Rich Eisen and, he's announced he's moving officially over to ESPN, And with WWE signing on with ESPN, do you think, we saw the Seth Rollins, we're seeing a lot of shows starting to talk wrestling.
Mhm.
And, with the long-term deal, do you think this is something we're going to see a lot more of with ESPN and
Yes.
WWE and
100%.
cross promoting?
100%. This is a
I
partnership
love it.
that is going to continue, especially with them now being a part of the ESPN Plus or whatever they're going to call the streaming site.
It just makes me laugh because when we first started this podcast, that was one of the key things is there was nowhere to listen to wrestling talk. So that was one of the key points that we wanted to throw into our sports
Oh.
entertainment show. And now it's popping off everywhere.
I agree. And again, we caught the wave at the right time, I feel. And Evan Cohen even was on the show. You can go back and listen to the interview on our YouTube channel.
Great
And
interview.
he said himself, like, if you are not doing that, if you're not really harnessing the power that is the WWE talking points and stuff like that in your own show, you're really doing yourself a disservice. But yes, I do believe you're going to see a lot more of these guys on these shows, probably guest hosting these shows because they're all great talkers and they're sports fans. They're athletes at heart. So, I mean, it's the exact thing you need and want from your hosts and stuff like that. And they are obviously well knowledgeable about the sports they're talking about and the injuries that can take place during them and any of the stories and contract disputes and stuff that could absolutely happen. So yeah, I think you're going to see a lot more of this going forward, 100%. But
well, before we get out of the whole court case, we kind of knew this was coming. We talked about a couple yesterday that a lot of these are getting cleared. We talked about the Gruden deal. Now he can move forward fighting against the NFL outside of arbitration, and now it's the same thing. Federal Appeals Court has ruled that Brian Flores can now go forward with his racial discrimination, his lawsuit against the NFL and the Denver Broncos, the Giants, and the Texans for not doing his interviews. And if they did, they just kind of Rooney ruled it and did the interview and never followed up. Now, this one is a bit different for me, at least, because usually we see this with coaches that ended up getting fired or are not in the league. And this guy is still a defensive coordinator for the Minnesota Vikings.
And one of the best ones.
Yeah. And while he's, going up against a lawsuit against the league that pays him. So this one is just a bit stranger.
Oh, trust me, I'm in your head right now because all I'm thinking is this is a sticky situation for Flores. Because as we said yesterday when we were talking about the John Gruden situation, I don't know a lot of companies and organizations that are going to hire you when you just sued them. You know what I mean? So I feel like it's the same instance here. Are you going to sue? You rightfully should, because again, racial discrimination is not okay and you shouldn't just walk away from it. Although he's probably just kind of mad about it now because he has a job, although he will probably wants a starting or a head coaching job, as all these coaches do. But like, that's kind of where I'm at with it is in terms of being right and more morally, at least, you should go through with the lawsuit. But in terms of, saving your own hindquarters when in terms of your job,
you better watch it.
Exactly. That's where I'm worried about is that if he does go through with this lawsuit, who's to say the NFL doesn't strong arm the Minnesota Vikings into not having or to firing him or something of that nature? That's what I would be. But then again,
protect the shield.
If you do that, I guess you would just be further winning his case.
Yeah, setting it up for a bigger pocket.
So I guess in a way, the NFL's even got their hands tied this entire situation. So we'll see what we'll see when we get more updates on how this entire lawsuit might be going down here the next couple months, because this is a sticky situation. I don't know exactly how I would feel about it if I were Brian Flores, but suing the people who currently employ you.
Well, before we take our first break, how about today? It's Friday. It's Fantasy Friday. Don't text in, Saquon Barkley or whatever the top 3 or 4 running backs. We want to know who is your sleeper running back this year. Text it in 661-842-2000. We'll save it until 8:30. So we'll line up the your sleeper running backs today. Text them in 661-842-2000. We'll take our first break. We'll wrap up some miscellaneous news before we go down our own fantasy running back list right here on the Early Bird Special.
Welcome back. This is the early bird special. I'm sorry, I'm reading this story currently. Wayne Rooney has come out and had his thoughts about Tom Brady's criticism of his work ethic, calling it unfair. So I had to read up on this. For those of you who don't remember this situation, back in, I believe, January, I can't remember exactly when Tom said it, but he was talking about the Birmingham City soccer team, which I believe he has stake in, and he was criticizing the work ethic of some people on the team. He didn't mention Rooney by name, but it was heavily implied. He was talking about the former manager who was let go back in January of 24. And it's just an interesting read. The entire situation, I mean, when you hear of guys like Tom Brady or somebody questioning your work ethic, I mean, you hear validity in it, right? Because he's one of the greatest in his sport. So obviously, people are going to automatically believe, yeah, no, if he doesn't see a good work ethic, you clearly do not have a good work ethic. And Rooney has just come out and defended himself, calling it unfair, and apparently that there are many situations that have kind of led to the lack of success that he had with the team. But again, I wasn't following close enough to be able to tell you exactly what they were. It's those types of situations where you have sports clashing with each other, or at least heads of sports clashing with each other, that make me wonder, wonder what what football players and soccer players see as good work ethic. You know what I mean? Maybe it's just different in different sports. But I don't know, that's just my
every
thought.
sport's different, and I had to bring this up before we get into some other miscellaneous news. But late in July, former Houston Texans standout football Hall of Famer Andre Johnson is the next athlete entertainer that has had his home burglarized, and thieves breaking a bedroom window, ransacking the residence, and among the stolen items was his Hall of Fame ring. Like, come on.
I'd love to say they can't sell that too, but you totally can. Pawners aren't going to care. They're just going to look at the ring and say, ooh,
whoa, yeah,
money. And it's like, God, you guys suck. You all suck.
it's getting out of control, but
yeah, but what can we really do about it? Because like I keep trying to rack my head around this, right? It's easy for us to sit there and say, well, just get security or whatever, as if these guys don't already have built-in security to their houses. Let's be honest. It's just they're getting targeted. All these athletes who have plenty of money are getting targeted by thieves because, that's just kind of what happens. If you don't know, like, these guys don't just pick a house, walk up to it and say, ooh, I'm going to, break into this house today. They've been scoping you out for a while. They know where you live. They know your tendencies and where you go and what time and all that type of stuff. That's why athletes get hit so easily, because you already know their schedule. If, like baseball players, if Aaron Nola from the Phillies is out in Seattle and, on Monday, oh, look, Aaron's house is empty for 5 days because no one's there. So it's super easy to break in and get to their stuff. But that's why I'm saying, what can we really do? You know what I mean? Like, you can't really group them all up and make them live in communities, because that's just going to put a bigger target on them.
Do you think it's someone inside, like a cleaner or a neighbor, or do you think all of these kind of collide into one? Probably, I mean, because it's happening everywhere. A lot of them definitely are in Texas. This one was in Houston, but
well, I'm not throwing shade in that area. I do believe sometimes that does happen, where you have somebody who's a cleaner who tells, their cousin, hey, he's not home at this time, come over or whatever. I'm sure that happens. And I mean, we hear instances of at least athletes believing that happens, because I know in quarterbacks, I think this last year, Joe Burrow brings that up specifically, that he couldn't trust his own cleaners or anything anymore after the house got broken into, because he didn't know how. I think in this instance with Andre, where you break a window and you kind of just go in and do all that, I don't think that's the case.
Yeah, that sounds more of like
they were scoping you out for a while, realized, okay, he's gone for a couple hours, we can do this, and just break the window and go. But yes, instances where like they can somehow get into the door, in through the door or anything like that, or go through the back or something where they know there's a weak point in the cameras. Like that, obviously, yeah, like there's somebody on the inside. But
I mean, I'm not a millionaire. About 10, 11 years ago, my house was broken into, and my wife happened to come home for lunch and found out, the window was cut. We have a small little window by the washer room, or the laundry room, and they ransacked the house. They didn't get a lot, but it's just the privacy.
Mhm.
You feel like, what the hell? Not only that, but she had a box, like a little jewelry box that had one of her cat's ashes
And
in
they
it.
took that too?
They ripped it open and threw it all over the mattress. They flipped the mattresses. They were looking for some. I had a big Sparklets, water bottle, like a big jug that I used to put my change in. That thing was probably 50, 75 pounds. Somehow they got it down the street.
Mhm.
The neighbors, everybody was like, oh, we didn't see anything. It was in the middle of the morning. It was like 10 to 11 in the morning. And luckily, not something crazy got stolen, but it got us to get, 24-hour security cameras all around the property. But it's just it's a dirty feeling
Mhm.
that someone is in where your
Yeah.
family sleeps. So I mean, it's just a disgusting thing. So I can't even imagine what these players, these athletes, anybody really that's had their home broken into. It's a dirty feeling.
And dude, I would assume most of them have moved, to be honest with you. I know Travis Kelce did. I know they packed up and moved soon after they got broken into, I guess, and that you heard it on the podcast with Taylor the other day. It's just one of those situations where I agree with you. Like it wasn't technically my home, but it was my home. I was living in it. My dad's house got broken into through my window. Like, so for a while there, yeah, there's an unsettling feeling when you wake up and you hear the window still, the wind blowing through it because it was shattered at one point, and you're realizing they could come through that window at any point in time again if they wanted to. Like, it's a really unsettling feeling. So I totally agree with you 100%. It's I can't necessarily say it's not a coincidence or just petty crime, because I do believe that this just happens. There's people that just break into people's homes and steal stuff because they're struggling and they need something, or maybe they're a drug addict and they need that fix, man, and
That's what it was. We found out it was a neighbor's boyfriend,
yeah,
and
scoping out your house,
what
realized, hey, he's got a nice TV in there that I could probably sell at a pawn shop for $50.
and what was dirty is the family of the home
Mm,
was actually helping me look around in the neighborhood. So I was like, after a week or two, we got the cameras, and luckily a neighbor had cameras, and I was able to find, okay, it was him.
mm.
So I mean, it's usually the people that are closest, whether it's a neighbor or a cleaner or whatever. But it's just dirty.
I think there's a
Hopefully,
comedian that has a joke about that. I
hopefully
can't
they can
remember.
get to. I'm sure Flair will have one for me
Oh,
too. But
100%.
longtime NBA standout Porzingis is now currently with the Atlanta Hawks, but he revealed earlier this week that he's a diehard MMA fan. He's had passion,
Mm.
and he intends to pursue, once his basketball career is over, to get into the MMA career.
Oh, he's a menacing figure too. I mean, you look at him,
7'1".
man. Shoot, 7'1", looking down at you. I mean, that's pretty long reach too. I've seen him at plenty of UFC fights. So this does not surprise me at all. And honestly, just kind of looking at him, like his demeanor, the way he carries himself, like you look like somebody that's into combat sports. Like, and that's not a slight at all. I just like, you can kind of tell sometimes when you're looking at somebody, it's like, you like the UFC, huh? Or like you like WWE or some sort of combat sport. Like, it's just that they carry this kind of personality about them. Not that it's a bad thing, but it's just like you can kind of see it. And I definitely see that with Porzingis. I don't know. What are your thoughts on this?
I mean, he's not a big. I mean, tall. He's tall.
Yeah.
Weight wise, I
He's
don't
got
know.
the work ethic, at least, as long as he could stay healthy, literally. Because I mean, he's been dealing with illness the last year, but if you can stay healthy and you can stay spry and get in the weight room, put on some muscle.
That's what I was thinking. If you put some weight on, some muscle, he might be good. Who knows?
Heavyweight division could look at a 7-1 fighter, man.
But I do like the ethic. He said, he would love to jump in now, but he's got too much respect for his team that he'll focus on it after he retires.
Could you imagine him showing up to a game with a big old black eye because he just fought somebody the day before? Oh my Lord!
Trying
Honestly,
to do two sports like that,
dude, he
insane.
would gain a lot more respect for me, to be honest, because I think a lot of the problem, or I shouldn't say the problem, a lot of the criticism of Porzingis sometimes is that he's a little soft because he's a European player and everybody immediately goes to, oh, European players are soft. A lot of them really aren't anymore if you really watch them play. Jokic and Porzingis and Giannis have been dominating people down low for years. But he just, I agree with you. I think I need to see him build some muscle here. Maybe Dana White gives him a nod. Maybe he says, hey, come over and try it. Let's see what you can do in the heavyweight division, because unless you can somehow slim him down to light heavy.
You get some milk. You need some milk. But it is Fantasy Friday. If you'd like to win some Brunch Fest tickets, like we said, text in your sleeper running back going into fantasy drafts coming up. Text them in 661-842-2000. And right after this break, we'll kick off our Fantasy Friday as we run down our top 12 running backs, and we'll sprinkle in our 3 sleepers right here on the Early Bird Special.
Welcome back. Early Bird Special on this Fantasy Friday. And as we're going to do for you here the next couple of Fridays, we're going to break down our top, well, 10, 12, 15, depending on the position. You might get a little bit longer when it comes to the wide receivers, but we're going to give you your top 12 running backs today, along with 3 sleeper picks for you guys who are fantasy football fans out there. I know everybody is eagerly awaiting your fantasy draft here. Most likely, I would assume, in the next 2 weeks. That's when we have ours around Labor Day. Actually, I think we have ours on Labor Day this year, if I'm not mistaken. Thank you, Sparky. I love when I have a day off and I actually can relax and plan out my draft, and I have multiple this year I have to get to. But as we told you guys yesterday, the running back position is pivotal in fantasy football. If you want to win your fantasy football league, listen to me now. You need two running backs. It will not, you can't get it done with one. I don't care how good they are.
And I usually say if at least snag one in the top 2 or 3 rounds,
I
because
agree.
you're gonna be reaching
Absolutely
towards round 4.
Quarterbacks may be flashy. They may get you the big game once every 6 weeks, unless you're Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson. But when it comes to winning championships in fantasy football, the running back position, in my opinion, is the number one position. I know everybody loves to talk about wide receivers, and
They're just
granted, yes,
tons of them.
huge. But yes, there are tons of wide receivers. And the beauty of the wide receiver position is there are so many sleepers every single week that could break out at any point in time. So you can make a living on fantasy football, literally just running the waiver wire on wide receivers.
Yep.
You really can. I've seen it done before, and it actually has won people championships before. It's crazy.
And tight ends.
Tight ends too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Unless you get one of those guys that are, the number one, your Brock Bowers is, you don't
Mhm.
need another tight end, obviously. But there are certain guys. Actually, I did that one year where I couldn't find a solid tight end for me. So I had to run the waiver wire all year long. It works. It really
But
does.
you had your running backs.
Yep. I always have the running backs, dude. I mean, he's been in drafts with me. I will take 2 running backs in the first 3 rounds. I really don't care.
Yeah, and it helps.
It does.
You can always find, the Godwins or, the wide receiver 2s that are good for PPR.
For those of you who are wondering, last year in the league I was with Sparky, I had Bijan and Kyron Williams. Yeah, there's a reason I was in the playoffs. Let's get to our top 12. Do we want to start from 1 or you want to start from 12?
With running backs, we'll probably run down our top 5 or 6 just because a lot of them, everyone knows the names, the top backs, and I'm sure we have the same, probably just in a different order.
Okay, well, if we're going to go top 6, let's start from number 6 then, just so we can end with number 1. My number 6 of the year is going to be Derrick Henry of Baltimore. Obviously, the Baltimore Ravens, we've mentioned it multiple times while talking about our previews of the NFL, the most loaded team this year by far on roster. Derrick Henry is always a dominant force. He has never really taken a step back. And I believe this is going to be the year where you finally see the Baltimore Ravens literally just run all over everybody. The beauty of Derrick Henry is he gets a lot of touchdowns. Unfortunately for him, the guys I have in front of him just happen to get more yards and touchdowns than him and have more breakaway potential, which also factors into fantasy football, because if you can get a guy that can break away for a 40, 50-yard touchdown, you'll get bonus points for that. So Derrick Henry, although being a consistent workhorse for anybody's fantasy football team, I highly recommend you draft him if you have the opportunity to do so, especially if the other 5 are gone. But he is still going to be number 6 on my list.
My number 6 is Ashton Genty. I think he's going to get plenty of carries. Obviously, you don't know what you're going to get, but you've seen what he can do in college. And I think with the Pete Carroll type offense, I think he's going to have plenty of opportunities to do so. Usually, rookie running backs, unless it's a big name like Ashton Genty, they're going to go quick, especially if you play with a lot of Raider fans.
Mm-hmm.
So I have him at 6.
That's a good pick. I have him pretty high up here, but he's not in my top 6, unfortunately. My number 5, I got Kyron Williams. Last year, we saw a breakout year from Kyron. He scored in dang near every game he played in. And it was so much so that he was the dominant running back in fantasy football for a good portion of the year outside of Saquon Barkley. But I think this year, especially with the injury question marks around their starting quarterback right now, I know there's a lot of people in LA that are telling us, don't worry, it's not that big of a deal. Until I see otherwise, I'm going to say it's a big deal, especially when it comes to the back. So if that is the case, they're going to be going to their workhorse of last year, which was and continues to be Kyron Williams. And I believe that he's going to get those goal line opportunities this year that he got last year.
I like it. Number 5 for me is James Cook. I think he's going to continue to be that touchdown guy.
You put a Buffalo in
I did.
What?
But I also think that he's not going to get as many points as he did last year. He's paid. And I think the offense is going to be a bit different in Buffalo, but I think James Cook is a top 5, top 6 running back.
Well, look at Sparky warming up to the Buffalo
I'm
Bills
not
a
warming
little.
up. I just know my fantasy.
That's fair. That's absolutely fair. And we're talking about a guy who scored 18 touchdowns last year. He was on my list for a while until I really kind of boiled down what I was thinking how this season was going to go.
Buffalo is going to be.
And unfortunately, he kind of fell off into the 15 range for me. Not to say he's not going to be a contributor to that offense, but I just think a lot of these guys, coming up are going to be a lot better this year than we saw last year.
It's hard to get, 18 more touchdowns every year.
Exactly. And I mean, we saw it with Jamal Williams. I mean, with the Saints, when you had that 1 year of, I think, 20 touchdowns, something very close to it.
Monster did it a couple years ago.
Yeah, and then they just fall off. So it's a good possibility that James is one of those people that does that, especially now that he got paid. Let's not forget that a lot of the times when these guys get paid, sometimes their production could drop off. So it really matters that way too. Number 4, what I got, and it's solely because of the injury proneness, it's Christian McCaffrey. I love Christian McCaffrey in fantasy football. Christian McCaffrey, when he is healthy, is a gold mine. When we talk about a running back that can run you to the playoffs by himself, that's Christian McCaffrey. But the problem is he hasn't been healthy in the last year to be able to say he is that Christian McCaffrey. Those of you who had him in last year or the year before that, when he half of the season was dropping 30-point bombs on teams, and then the other half didn't show up at all because he was injured, you understand how frustrating it can be to draft somebody of that caliber and that potential and not get it out of them. That's why I am so skeptical about taking him every single year, because I don't know if he's going to be healthy or if we're going to get the Christian McCaffrey that we need to win a championship in fantasy football. So because of that, I put him at number 4 solely because of when he is on the field, we're talking 25-point minimum.
Yeah, he's a game changer when he's healthy. Number 4 for me, I have McCaffrey on my list, but he didn't make my top 6. Number 4, I also drafted him last year.
Yeah,
so
you're
I
a little
still have that
spurned by
bad
that,
taste in my mouth still with him.
No,
but number 4, I've got Derrick Henry. He's a workhorse. I think the only problem is with Derrick Henry, he gets his carries, he gets his touchdowns, but when he's on a team with Lamar Jackson, sometimes, just sometimes, these goal line touchdowns get to Lamar instead of Derrick Henry. But he's still a top 5 running back no matter what way you look at it. I have him at 4, and now we're in our top 3. What you got?
Number 3 is the Madden cover himself, Saquon Barkley. Until I am proven otherwise, the Madden curse is real. Okay? That's why he's at 3. Because now I'm seriously curious if this thing is going to spread from Christian McCaffrey to Saquon Barkley, who also, let's not forget, once comes in with a lot of pressure with the Giants, because I drafted him very early in his career and had the ACL. We have to take into account that these things do factor in. So Saquon Barkley, although being on arguably the best offense in football and behind the best offensive line in football, and that is not arguable, he's going to produce. He's going to be Saquon Barkley. We just have to hope and pray, much like Christian McCaffrey, that he stays healthy. As long as he stays healthy, much like Christian McCaffrey, game changer, 20-point minimum. He could really go off for you on any occasion. Only difference with Christian McCaffrey is Saquon Barkley has the unfortunate benefit, I guess, to having a great offense around him, which means any point in time, Jalen could score instead, AJ could score instead, anybody else,
Devontae,
Smith.
everybody.
Yeah, it could be anybody except Barkley. Although Barkley has always gotten into the end zone when needed, and he's huge in terms of those breakaway points that I was telling you about earlier. Nobody breaks away more than Barkley, and the guy I have at number 1 on this list. It is obviously putting him above Christian McCaffrey in this, or in terms of how potentially he could be good for your team. But the injuries just kind of make me wonder, and the Madden curse 100% makes me wonder. So that's why I dropped him down a little bit.
My top 3, I'll run them down real quick because we're running into a break. But number 3 for me is Jahmyr Gibbs. I like the kid. He's one other thing is, I think for the first time in a long time, both running backs are going to be healthy starting into the season. I love Gibbs. I love his work ethic. And I think how Detroit is going to be a bit different with that offense. I think, they're going to lean on more of the running this year. I still think, St. Brown and Jameson Williams will get theirs. But my number 3 is Gibbs. Number 2 is Bijan Robinson. Obviously, he could be number 1 for a lot of people, but I have to go with number 1 with Saquon, just because it's Saquon. Not because of the Madden curse, but I just think that offense runs through Saquon Barkley. And one good thing is I had him in a couple leagues that I won last year. And not only is he Saquon Barkley, but he's one of those running backs that can just change a game in one run real quick. I think I was up by 6 going into the fourth quarter, and he not only ran for a 40-yard touchdown, but he ran for 2 40-yard touchdowns with 6 minutes left in the game.
Right.
So I've always got love for Barkley, and until something changes, I've got Barkley at 1.
I understand. Like you, I have been spurned by Barkley before. I know the injury history, and I'm telling you, dude, the Madden curse is real. It is 100% real, just like the sophomore slump. You guys are going to be seeing it this year, and I'm just going to say, during the season, I'm going to be saying, I told you so. I'm warning you now. Unfortunately, I may be wrong. Who knows? I'm always okay with being wrong at the same time. My 2 and 1, I have the same players as you, just in different order. I have Gibbs at number 2. I love what I see from him last season, and I agree with you. Both of them coming in healthy this year is going to make a huge difference. You're going to have Sonic and Knuckles from game 1, hopefully until game 18. At this point right now, though, we still have the major question mark of how this offense is going to look without Ben Johnson and who's going to be calling the plays. So we'll see if that affects his production at all. My number 1, and it's because he's been the number 1, Bijan Robinson. If you did not watch this kid last year, you are doing yourself a disservice. I tell you right now, there is nobody that is more shifty on this field, and that is not me talking about him as a Falcons fan. That is me talking in general. I have never seen somebody move like this kid, dude. Never. And him and Tyler Algier back to back is a problem for any NFL defense. He is going to be great this year. I think Penix coming in. If you noticed his numbers last year when Penix came in, they skyrocketed along with Drake London. I think that's going to continue this year. I hope Kyle Pitts can finally get a part of this year, and we actually see this offense in Atlanta kickstart of what we used to see when it was the Matt Ryan and Julio Jones days.
So my top 6 going with Saquon at 1, Robinson at 2, Gibbs at 3, Henry at 4, Cook 5, and Genty at 6.
And then I had Bijan, Gibbs, Barkley, McCaffrey, Kyron Williams, and Derrick Henry to round out my top 6. We'll give you the bottom 6 and our 3 sleepers as well for you guys right after this break. This is the Early Bird Special on 101.1 FM, 1230 AM, ESPN Bakersfield. Welcome back. This is the early bird special on this Fantasy Friday. Join us after the break. We got Chris Flail, our comedian, coming in to talk all things. Well, actually, we're talking a lot of things today. We're just going to have a potpourri kind of a thing. And then after that, we have some breaking news for you that I'm going to have to get to afterwards. But they have come down with punishment from Michigan and their sign stealing scandal.
Yeah.
$20 million and a suspension. We'll get to the rest of that and all of the details on the other side. The Athletic has the info for us, and I will read it right before we get out of here. But let's give you our bottom 6 picks for your running back position in fantasy football this year and our 3 sleepers with the short time we have left. Going from number 7 down, I got Josh Jacobs at number 7. I like the Green Bay Packers this year, and Josh Jacobs continues to be a pinnacle of consistency at the running back position. I think the Raiders did kind of mess up when they let him go, although getting Ashton Genty obviously is a good player to put in that position. But I think Josh Jacobs has really shown that he can be a top runner in the NFL, really, and lead this entire league in yards, less alone touchdowns, if he can get the opportunity. And with the Packers team leaning on this running game so much in the last couple of years, I think that's going to continue with a great running back. So if you're looking for a solid one to fill you out, I think Josh Jacobs could do that.
Well, go ahead.
You just want to go down the list?
Yeah,
sounds
go ahead.
Good. Number 8, I have Jonathan Taylor with the Colts. Because of the quarterback situation, I expect him to run the ball a ton, especially if it's either Daniel Jones or Anthony Richardson, because the only thing either of those two men can do is run the football. So Jonathan will most likely benefit from that and hopefully jump back into the top 10 of running backs. Number 9, anybody who's the starting running back for the Chargers. That is Amarian Hampton or Najee Harris. The only reason I say that is because we have no idea which one the starter is yet, but whomever that starter is going to be will be a top 10 fantasy running back. I promise you, nobody is going to run the ball more than the Chargers and Harbaugh this year. It's just going to happen, so that's going to benefit you. Alvin Kamara is who I have at number 10. The Saints are ugly as hell when it comes to the offensive side. I do not care for them, but there is always one pinnacle of consistency on that offense, and it's Alvin Kamara. He will always catch passes. He will always score touchdowns, and that's going to benefit you in fantasy football. Number 11, I got Joe Mixon in the Houston Texans. I think he's going to be spreading the love a little bit more with Nick Chubb than he's used to. But Joe Mixon, much like a lot of these other guys that I've mentioned, gets into the end zone a ton during the season. That is what he does best. And I assume Houston is going to continue in that trend. Rounding out my top 12, I got Ashton Genty. I think the rookie is going to be the most standout rookie this year by far on the offensive side of the ball. And he's going to make it known that he's going to be next year top 10, if not one of those top 5 running backs we talk about in fantasy football. I just think because of what we may or may not see from the Raiders this year in this offense being brand new, it could look ugly at points, which means there's going to be games where he's not going to be doing very well. So he's not exactly cracking into that top 10 for me just yet, but I do think he's one that you should keep your eye on.
Well, my bottom 6, 7 through 12. Number 7, I've got A-Train. Devin A-Chain, I think he's proven that he is a workload. He could carry the workload. I still think they'll mix in, the other running backs that I've thrown out. I think he's good for at least a top 10 running back. And I think if Tua's standing still and he's healthy and he's on the field, I think it just opens up the running game. And I think number 8, I've got Christian McCaffrey, which you had at number 4.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still a bit nervous with Christian McCaffrey. Plus, I'm not 100% sold on this offense in San Francisco until I can see that they can play solid football. I mean, hopefully we can scratch last year and just act like it didn't happen. But if McCaffrey's healthy, McCaffrey's a top 10 running back, usually a top 5 running back. But I'm just maybe just thinking about last year too much.
Not to cut you off, but let's also remember that Kyle Shanahan has always had a dominant running back, even stretching back to his Atlanta days.
Of course. And number 9, I've got Josh Jacobs, kind of close to what you had with Josh Jacobs at 7. He's a solid running back. I'm not sold on the Packers being as great of a team as they were last year, but Josh Jacobs will get his. Number 10 for me is Kyren Williams. I love the guy. He's a solid running back. If he could stay healthy, he gets his. I'm also nervous that Jimmy G is going to start the season And if he doesn't, we might see Stafford on the shelf early in the season. Number 11 was a kind of a reach, but with Bucky Irving, I like the running back. I like what the Tampa Bay Bucks, not only do they have a good, easy schedule, so the running back will get his, but with the offensive team that they have with the receivers, I think it just opens up a good running game.
Mhm.
And Bucky Irvin, I think he can take that step forward and be a top 12 running back. And to wrap up the list, I threw in Chase Brown, and only
Ooh.
because of the offense. The Bengals
Mhm.
put a ton of money into that offense, and I think players like Chase Brown could benefit on having, T. Higgins and
Jamar.
Jamar on that team stretching the field.
Fair. I just, and we saw a good stretch of games where Chase Brown looked like he could be a fantasy stud, right? He kind of fizzled out for me towards the end of the year. That's why I stayed away from this year. Do you want to run down our sleeper picks real quick
And
for the
we can
last 3 minutes?
we'll wait. We'll hold off until 8:30 because we've got
Okay.
a stack from the listeners as well.
Okay, fantastic. Well, that's our top 12 right there for you in fantasy football. Take them or leave them, to be honest with you. It's all just hearsay until the season starts anyway.
And if you want some Brunch Fest tickets, you got about 30 minutes to text in your running back sleeper for this year at 661-842-2000.
I'm telling you, there's going to be a good amount of running backs this year. I think the running back position is really starting to get that validity that it needs in the NFL. I think that we have forgotten how much you need a run game and how pivotal that is to winning a championship. That's why I was really happy to see Philadelphia win last year, because if there was one team that really just made everybody remember that you need a run game, it's Philadelphia. And that's without Jason Kelce. Imagine if they had Jason Kelce. I don't care what people say. That man will go down as one of the best centers in football, even though it's really just because he's so popular. But it is what it is. We got to take a break. Right after the break, we're going to talk to our friend Chris Flail, local comedian. He's got a couple shows coming up in Tehachapi that he's going to talk to you guys about. Plus, we're going to talk about some wrestling too. I want to get his thoughts on this entire Karrion Kross situation. Now we know Scarlett was never offered a contract. Interesting. This is the Early Bird Special right here on 101.1 FM, 1230 AM, ESPN Bakersfield. Welcome back. The Early Bird Special, Hour 2. Join us in the 8:30 segment. We'll give you our sleepers for the running back position in fantasy football. But until then, our friend Chris Flail is here.
Good to be back. I missed you, boys.
Chris
Glad
Flail
to-
and friends.
Absolutely. We're part of the Friends now.
Oh,
So-
yeah.
We're
Yeah,
definitely part of the Friends
and
now.
funniest and funnest friends.
Hey.
Absolutely.
And Flail is an Eagles fan, so I got 2 questions for you.
Oh,
One
no.
is bouncing off our running back list. He's leaning on the Madden curse with Barkley.
It's going to give you a step back.
I'm worried about it.
I'm
See?
not. I'm not worried
See?
about it.
Well, not just Madden curse, but workload. This
Yeah.
type of workload for 2 straight years, and at least from what I've read in the blogs about the Eagles-Browns scrimmage, is that it's going to take a little while for our passing attack to get themselves right. So those first,
See, I've heard the Hutchinson. They have a Hutchinson rule that if he gets close to the quarterback, just let him run off to the side and keep continuing to play. Because they've
Yeah.
got
That's
an
what-
Aiden rule.
Honestly, that's what my coaches used to do. Our offensive line used to be terrible in high school. So anytime they got anywhere close, they'd just continue the play, just keep going.
just protect yourself.
I
Yeah.
Pretend it didn't
I
happen.
got too much love for Barkley to overlook him. I still think
I like.
his stats might decrease, but I think he's good for the touchdowns, especially in fantasy.
I know, but I don't want it to sound like I'm overlooking it. I know Saquon Barkley is still a top 3 running back in the league, but it's just
Well,
it's like Christian McCaffrey last year. Like we had an entire year of just injury-riddled play
Yes.
that never really got to where you need it to be to win a fantasy
The
championship.
type of workload that he's going to need for the team to be successful, the odds of 2 straight years of that without some type of at least nagging injury is, 2 to 4
Yeah.
to 6 games.
That guy's a beast.
No, he is. But again, let's like I said at the beginning of the segment, let's not forget what happened to him at the beginning of his career with the Giants. I
Luckily, he's not
drafted
on the
him
Giants.
his second year. Super excited. This is where I started believing in the sophomore slump. I'm telling you.
I think if he was still with the Giants, I'd have the same conversation.
Fair.
But
Well,
with
if
the
he was still
Eagles'
with the Giants,
offensive line,
if he
I
was
think I could get 1,000
The-
yards running that.
we weren't going to get anywhere close to the production last year if he was still with the Giants.
Of course.
As you well know, Sparky, the Madden curse has me so nervous this year that I've been superstitiously hiding from fantasy football leagues because I don't want to be in the position.
Be that guy. Well, my team isn't a Super Bowl champ since the 70s, so fantasy is my runaway.
I'm not gonna lie to you. Your team was catching strays last night from some sportscasters I was reading
Oh, that's what they
or
do.
looking at.
They've been
listening to
bashing
on
us
the radio.
What
for
about?
I don't
decades.
just that like I turned on my car when I tell you at 7 o'clock when I left here. I can't remember what show was playing at the time, but first thing I heard was nobody's expecting much from the Dolphins.
Yeah, Vegas-
I'm like, whoa.
Vegas has got him with 5 wins, so I'm gonna try to get to Vegas before then because I
I'd
think
put money down
we're
on
at
that.
least good to take the over. But
Oh yeah.
personally, they've had 2 joint practices with the Lions, and the first day they just humiliated the Dolphins.
Yeah.
But luckily, the second day the Dolphins came out and put up some points. I was like, okay, it's not completely over, and it's preseason. I mean, this weird coach that we have, McDaniel, is talking a lot about he doesn't want to use certain plays and
Right.
and joint practices. And I think when you run that type of mathematical, offense, I think a lot of it you don't see in preseason. And seeing week 1 of preseason, we got to see Tua without Tyreek, without Waddle, and he still looked good. As long as he's healthy, I think the Dolphins are good of over 500 this year.
Well, I kind of disagree with you that you don't see it because I think you do. I think you just mentioned it that you do see it, especially in the practices. You mentioned first day you guys were getting beat up on. I think that is a testament to the 2 different cultures
Yep.
that these coaches have brought in, right? McDaniels is a much more methodical, cerebral coach that really wants to beat you like in a chess game, where Dan Campbell just wants to run you over and
Yeah,
show you how
be
tough
gritty.
we are.
That's right.
Well,
And I
my
think you
second
need
question
that.
for the Eagles fan is a lot of the sports talk. I mean, it's off season, so they're just reaching for stuff to talk about. But this one has been a headline in a lot of these sports shows is Sirianni. Last year before the winning streak, they were already talking about canning him. Now that he's got the Super Bowl, do you think if he has a bad year this year that he's on the chopping block kind of previously like the
2 years.
Doug
the coach
Peterson,
you had
yeah.
before?
2-3 years. Yeah. If this year goes south, there will be a little bit of grace, and then next year the season will start with him on the hot seat. I mean, we're going to we're going to fire our offensive coordinator from the couch midway through game one. It's what we do.
It's Philadelphia.
It's what we do best.
No, it's Philadelphia.
Yes.
And so he'll get a little bit of grace for the championship. It's the one thing I differ with most of my fellow Eagles fans on is I am a diehard, but again, I thought my whole life would come and go without seeing one Super Bowl. It's kind of what all of our family had. It's kind of the thing.
Oh, I said the same thing about the Cavaliers. It's like, I will never see this team win a finals.
I got to see 2 of them. I never expected to see one. I don't care if they never win a game again. I kind of secretly hope that the whole season was rained out this year. It's all gravy. Until like game 2 or game 3, and then
Right.
I'll be firing the coordinator too. But at least I give a game.
Well, I just wanted to hear it from a real fan because, we hear about it all the time. I know Sirianni was on the hot seat last year, and he was able to turn around that team. And I think maybe you're right. I think if they're under 500, they'll give them us,
You know what's funny, by
maybe
the way,
next year.
is Bakersfield has a gigantic Philadelphia Eagles fans contingent, and I've spoken to a bunch of them and been like, are you from Pennsylvania, or how'd you get this? And like, no, just my grandpa liked the Eagles. But these fans out here are so much more diehard and vicious fans
Yes.
than the people that I know. It's like rappers' kids. Like T.I.'s son is somehow trying to be more gangster than he. It's that's that. They feel like they've got to go over the top to.
I grew up
the
with
extra
one
connection.
Eagle fan, and I've seen all sorts of them in the last 5 or 10 years.
It's the lore, man. You know what Philly fans have done, like in Philadelphia. We're talking about a fan base, and I mention this all the time, that threw batteries at Santa
I
Claus
think
at a
it was
baseball game.
snowballs. Yeah.
Well,
allegedly batteries.
Batteries are in the snowballs.
Well,
Let's be smart.
And it's funny. Our former governor Ed Rendell used to brag about being at that game. He's like, "Yeah, I threw a couple of snowballs, and I'm sure that garnered some. I know it got my vote."
Either way,
as a 9-year-old who could.
But see, that's
Of
also
course.
kind of why I disagree that Sirianni's never going to be on the hot seat like that if they have a bad year, because he really
Well,
he
they did the same
engulfs
thing with
that.
Peterson.
Well, and he embraces the Bryce Harper ultimate
Exactly.
Philly slime person. He just looks
No,
like his
he
mouth
is from Philly, dude. Like he
Kingpin.
embodies Philadelphia.
You look at his mouth, and come on, like
when
he just
he's
has
getting
that in him.
booed, when he's getting
Don't be a
booed or
baby.
cussed out by his own fan base, he doesn't shy away and say, "Oh,
No.
I'm sorry." He turns around and says, "F you."
That's right.
Watch this
Yeah.
and go and win a football game.
I like his attitude.
Go
That's what I'm saying.
home.
That's so Philadelphia. That's why it's like, I think in certain situations you can say that, especially since we've seen Philadelphia teams do it in the last couple of years, because the Phillies just did it with their manager a couple of years ago, where they just fired him out of the blue and they turned around the entire situation with Rob.
Yeah.
And now I just feel like they did the exact same thing. I think Peterson was that guy that just really didn't fit the mold well. True, you
true.
got to a Super Bowl with him, but it didn't necessarily fit the team.
When it wins, he's a grandfatherly, nice figure.
And Sirianni came up and said, "No, I'm Philly through and through." I think there's never been an Eagles coach that really has embodied this fan base like Sirianni does.
Yeah, ultimate mouth, almost getting beat up by his players on the sideline.
Right.
That's
what I expect
the
from a Philadelphia
a 5'8"
head coach.
That's right, a 5'8" unshaven, battery throwing slime.
He's
That
gonna
is what
bite
we
your
do.
ankles off.
That's who we are. Yeah,
I'm telling you, it works. That's why it's like, I don't know.
you might be right.
I think the Philly fan base will always be fickle because they want to win so much. But realistically, that's not going to really get him.
And you're right.
fired.
There are some Teflon, like the Allen Iverson syndrome. He never had to give us anything.
No.
In Teflon, Randall Cunningham never gave us anything. You
Like
can't say
Green
a bad
Man?
word about him.
Green Man.
Green Man.
That's I always give him some love. I'm a big It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia fan.
Yeah.
So those episodes when they went to the Eagles fan or the Eagles game, or when they tried out for the Eagles, that were great episodes.
I've got a buddy on Instagram. His name is E-Rock, and he's becoming like the new Philly mascot. And
Really?
yeah, he's
Really?
becoming the guy. If you get a chance, check him out on my followers thing.
E-Rock.
He's at camp all the time. Yeah, he's becoming the real deal. I
I
think.
love seeing super fans.
Yeah,
Super fans take it to a whole different level, and I love it because it's wholesome.
Yes.
You never see these guys get to, well, outside of the Kansas City Chiefs super fan who stole all the money to actually be at the games, but Everybody else seemingly is a really just wholesome person that loves their team. So
Yeah.
you can get behind it.
Speaking of KC superfans, what'd you think of the Taylor? What'd you think of the Taylor?
I've-
So
I've
can
been
you,
playing Taylor all week.
as
I've
production
been
people,
expecting this forever. I
As
was like, when
production-
are we getting this? Like,
as production people, could you hear the hard cuts in the
Oh,
podcast
yes.
where it's like,
Horrible
this is
editing.
totally natural. Yeah, all
Horrible
right.
editing. Horrible.
well, see, and that's the thing is there are points where I was watching promos from it where I felt really uncomfortable with just how Travis and Taylor were
Yeah.
because it seemed very forced and like color of your eyes, like
Mhm.
that kind of a thing. Like she slapped
She's
him
the-
and said, "No, say this,"
Mhm.
and then that's where you got the edit. But there were honest moments in there where I was like, "Okay, Taylor's actually kind of funny." Like
Personable. Yeah.
the
And
rage baiting of football fans was great.
And
I-
of course, yeah. And you look at it and you go, of course, that's it. You can entertain 60,000 people in a night. Of course, you can be a natural doing
Absolutely.
this. Yeah.
And that's what I'm thinking in my head too. It's like I've been expecting this at some point.
Yeah.
She was going to either be on the podcast or release something on the podcast.
Yeah.
So it made a lot of sense. Do you think they're going to get married though, like the media is running around with?
I mean,
I think if they do, it doesn't last long.
this is, I agree with you. This
Ouch.
is the soft launch, but it
Well,
seems,
no, it's just it's
Ouch.
celebrity marriages,
Jeez
dude.
Louise.
Celebrity
I
marriages
think-
last maybe 2 to 3 years.
I think they're made for each other. I think if it wasn't for the Eagles, they would have gotten married last year because I know Kelsey's plan was to propose in the middle of the field after they won
I
the
forgot
Super
we have a
Bowl.
Swifty super fan.
I love Swifty.
oh, are you a
He's a
Swifty?
And
Swifty super fan.
He'd be an idiot to walk away from that. So
Oh, I'm not
just
saying don't get me wrong. I agree with you. You do not walk away from Taylor. But
He's got about a year and a half to really entrench himself in
Thank you.
Hollywood. He really, and to not say, it's a good thing that they edit that themselves on that podcast.
Well, he came out during that interview was blaming. He said, he had a bad year too. It's because of acting. He said, I spend way too much time, training to be an actor and all this. And I'm like, you still
the
get to
problem
go
is-
home with the Swifty. So,
But the problem is that it's almost like fighters. You don't necessarily get that back just by
Mhm.
recommitting. There is
exactly.
momentum. Momentum
Especially
is
when
a
you're
hell
this
of a
old.
thing. Yeah. And when you give that up, like it doesn't always come back to you just because you've recommitted to the craft. And
Mhm.
I mean, he was in Happy Gilmore. I don't necessarily think he's taken that much time off
Mm-mm.
from Hollywood.
no,
So
you can't take that much time off for a 5-10 minute scene, maybe.
he killed me in my fantasy last year. I was like, he's going to buckle down halfway through this year and carry me through the playoffs. And he just never did.
Well, just don't draft him or Kyle Pitts. You'll be
Yeah.
fine this year.
Yeah.
Oh God, I had another question for you based around Taylor too, and I forgot.
That's
Oh
hilarious. This is
Uh,
hilarious.
no,
I had
so-
another Taylor Swift question for you, and I
Well, no, it's not necessarily based on that, but it's kind of a parallel because everybody was so excited to hear that podcast. The other podcast that came out this week for wrestling fans out there who have been eagerly awaiting news of this, Stephanie's podcast, sitting down with Jimmy Uso and
Oh.
Naomi,
yes.
where everybody was assuming we were going to get some sort of answer of, are you pregnant? I watched it for you, so you didn't have to.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I did
No,
not.
there's nothing. All they do is talk about the relationship and her upcoming and all of this and all like her excitement around the career.
So the injury is real?
There's no answer of an injury either. It seems like this podcast was actually recorded either right before or right after SummerSlam. I can't
Oh,
really
so it
tell
was
when.
It was before.
Yeah, this was like a week ago, but they are clearly just kind of riding the hype of her potential pregnancy.
Yeah. I'm conflicted on how to feel, and please, Burdick, tell me if I'm being a grumpy old man. But
Yes.
here's my. I go back and forth, but here's my gut feeling. My gut feeling is that this all stems from the Unreal, documentary and
Blurring of the lines.
letting everybody way behind the curtain to show them everything in kayfabe. So now real life kind of has to become kayfabe too. And what I chalk it up to is, it's just like anything in entertainment and anything in life that I wish someone would take the stand, is that something that has a niche audience and is a niche thing is so cool that it starts to build steam and gets very popular to where it starts to touch mainstream popularity. And as soon as it does, that niche thing goes, ooh, we want to be mainstream popular, and it ignores its diehard niche base that got it there, starts to cater to the mainstream for what it needs to keep filling those seats.
Takes away.
Eventually the mainstream will get tired of it, like it gets tired of everything, and go away, and then the niche thing will have nothing and have to pivot back to cater to its natural audience.
Right.
I feel like that's what we're doing with the Let Everybody Behind the Curtain, and they never really played with real injuries before. It was like Vince gets blown up in the limousine, but it's not like I have a torn clavicle and I can't, and they're playing with us on that. The fake pregnancy thing, the Karrion Kross, is it a contract? Is it not a contract?
Well,
thing?
you just opened up that conversation, because I know he's going to want to hear what you think about this Karrion Kross, but I think you're right. I think I'm behind you 100% with that, because that's where I've been kind of seeing, whether it's been, I've, for the first time since I got back into wrestling, I haven't watched Raw live.
Yeah.
I'm kind of leaning on SmackDown. I'll pre-record it and I'll fast forward through some of the BS, but I'm starting to see the same thing. I watched the Unreal Deal. The documentaries are great. I would never take away from anything that we're seeing, especially with all the documentaries, even the ones that aren't included with WWE, with Dark Side of the Ring and all of that. But I think they just opened up a whole new deal that they might scare away. I don't know about scaring, but moving away the real diehard fans and getting into this Hollywood type deal where we've seen, with the Seth injury, but now we're seeing the Miz. He's doing his own show. He's filling in for Rich Eisen. And I think we talked about it in the beginning of the show with ESPN now, in bed with the WWE. We're going to start seeing a lot of cross promotions. And I think it might take away from what we as wrestling fans really watch for.
Yep.
I see. Okay. I see both of your points, and I've heard this all across the internet, because I keep seeing more and more videos on YouTube of random wrestling fans saying, I can't be a wrestling fan anymore, or anything like that. Like, just clear clickbait, rage bait kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I have multiple layers to this answer. So I get the entire kayfabe thing, but take this into account as well, at least from my point of view, or at least from what I'm seeing, what they believe. Because I'm trying to sit myself in the same room as these producers and these writers and stuff like that, and Triple H, and figure out how we can take the company and make it bigger.
Yeah.
And the only real way to do that is to move it into mainstream.
Yep.
And theoretically, you've already kind of been doing that, right? We've had wrestlers move into the acting scene and all that, and it's never really been a problem up until now. True, we have guys now hosting Rich Eisen's show and doing all that type of stuff, and still going by their wrestling name. Instead of Seth Rollins going as Colby Lopez, he goes as Seth Rollins, and that's because that's who he is and he's known by. But I feel like the stretching into the mainstream, although can upset a lot of people because you're now no longer niche. I think it was, for a lot of these fans, they were only fans because no one else was a fan. You know what I mean? It's kind of a hipster mindset in a way, but they sit there and think, oh, now that, the jock that's also playing football is a fan of this, I can't be a fan of this because now it's cool and all that. Like, so it's kind of like an anti thing.
I get that.
But in terms of kayfabe, I believe that what they're trying to do here is reestablish it in a way that is consumable to everybody while also being the line they need it to be. So when you look at guys like Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns, you see Roman Reigns, you don't see Joe Anoa'i. I say that all the time, because when you walk up to a guy or Roman, you're not going to walk up and say, oh my God, Joe, hi. Yeah. You're going to say, oh my God, you're Roman Reigns. So they're establishing that line again with everybody in real life, because that's what you have to do. Everybody now knows that this stuff is scripted and all of that, and you now have to play with that in play. There's no way to reestablish that. None. Everybody's always going to go in knowing this is fake. So in order to reestablish that line of mysticism and magic that we all saw when we were kids, because you look at it and think, oh my God, Kane is really a 7-foot monster that can create fire with his hands. The only way to do that is to blur the lines a little bit in real life. So that's kind of what they're trying to do here, and play with you in a way of, you're now part of the game. I think we saw that a lot with the social media aspect of a lot of it. With Unreal, you kind of explained that they did everything with Cody and Kevin off screen on purpose, hoping and praying that fans would see it. Imagine if no fans saw it. Imagine if they did it at the wrong spot in the wrong place, and it literally nobody saw it at all. It wouldn't
I
have
saw
carried
the
over.
good thing is that we've got Triple H running the ship, because if it was a Vince McMahon days, we might be screwed for the next 5 years with this contract deal.
Well, that's going to be the interesting part. Is, I mean, forget about the out of the company stuff about Vince, but as far as in the company, I think we're going to start to see an evolution of Triple H kind of turning into Vince. I think sitting in that seat for long enough, you are going to have to turn into the fictional and non-fictional villain of the company. I think at some point I think we're going to watch him go through a very similar professional progression as Vince did in that chair.
In what way? Like in actual media's eyes, or are we talking about in fan or like wrestling fandom?
I think
Probably
kind of in
both.
both. I think in both. So 2 WrestleManias ago, he was, at least the way I saw him, was kind of the hero of finally you're doing the right things. You're letting Cody finish his story. You've cleaned up the business.
Right.
You're giving him his watch.
You're doing long-term storytelling that isn't just like cheaper and lazier characters. You're not a freak show. And now it's already evolving into, wow, look what you did with R-Truth. You may be neglecting Karrion Kross. You're holding down LA Knight as opposed to Jey Uso, and everyone can see it. Eventually, I think he's going to wind up having to embrace that, and we're going to have a version of Vince in 2 or 3 years.
But that's also the case too, that you can't please everybody, and every wrestling fan also has to take into account that not everybody can have a belt. And we're not going to pass around these belts every week.
Well, I think you hit it, because I think that opens up a perfect writing, situation where you can't always, the crowd is what Cody always says is the crowd is wrestling. So they have to feed off of, the R-Truths, the Karrion Kross, which sets up perfectly, because the Cross thing, I think, is starting. At the beginning, I was thinking, oh, maybe this is just a work. I'm starting to think maybe it's not.
You think so?
I think it's real because, and I was telling him off the air, he did an interview, I believe, yesterday. I can never remember the host's name, but it's the combat sports host.
Oh, Ariel.
ESPN. Ariel, thank you.
Ariel.
He went on Ariel's show and was very sentimental about it, and brought up the fact, I was kind of curious about this, but I teased it before the break. True, we heard that Karrion got a contract.
Yes.
But we never heard if Scarlett did.
Right. And
he's not going to let his wife get fired while he continues to work.
No, and that makes sense, because when it stood out as weird to me during the Sami Zayn match when she threw him the pipe, and I was like, I get the go ahead and turn bad, but it is a weird storyline for the manager most closely tied with her superstar. I mean, they are a unit. There is no one without the other.
Right.
So that gesture with no signal from Karrion was a really weird thing to me, and maybe that was some foretelling of he's getting a contract. They were trying to phase her out, but again, Karrion Kross is Karrion Kross
hasn't wrestled in forever. They haven't booked her a match in years.
Yeah, but Karrion for a character is for us, is for the 25 to 45-year-old diehard. And right now, what I always say, as best as I could see it, is the way the business moves best is they need to cater to what the 6-year-olds like, and occasionally give a nod to the 25 to 44-year-olds who watch. But if you go mainstream, the first segment you have to satisfy is the 18 to 35-year-olds, and then the 6-year-olds. And then, so that's how you're going to find a Karrion Kross on the outside.
It almost felt like they didn't know the direction they wanted to use with Kross, and it got to the point that so far into when they did with the Sammy deal and then the second Sammy deal, it almost felt like, all right, well, they were lost in the beginning with Kross's story, and they tried to just almost throw something into the wall to see if it stuck, and it didn't. Yeah. So I almost feel like maybe they need to let him take a break and build up his character, and then bring him back here in a couple of years, if at all.
Well, and it's the hallmark of you're a public company now. You're not a family company. So you have, like you had spoken to this perfectly. You have to get bigger every year now. So there's never going to be a time where it's enough, where they go, okay, we're now doing 2 weekend WrestleManias where we're going to put 70,000 people in the stadiums. If they do that, the next year they go, all right, how do we make it 3 weekend WrestleManias? And at some point, you're going to outgrow your support when the
They
mainstream
want to
goes
make
away.
2 WrestleManias now, from what I understand.
Yeah,
they want
of
to split it
course.
in half and go one in the summer, one in the winter, which I find ridiculous.
And
but
if they do it, the next time they're going to have to do 3.
and that's what I'm saying. It's never going to be enough, like you said. But there's also not enough for all of these wrestlers to kind of get the credit that you want them to get, right?
Yeah.
And I think Paul Heyman said it beautifully on Ariel's show as well. What would be Jey Uso if he wasn't going after a title?
Yeah.
What is Jey Uso when he has the title? There's not much story there, right? The hero already won, so now what's going to happen?
Yeah, we've tried to let him talk. He just runs out of breath.
Exactly. So it's kind of the same with Karrion Kross. Karrion Kross on the outside pushing in is much more desirable than Karrion Kross with a belt.
Yeah.
And they really just don't have a storyline for him. But I do think it really boiled down, at least behind the scenes, to WWE offered him a contract where they gave him 24 hours to answer, like you said on Ariel's show, and it did not include Scarlett.
Yes.
I think that was the ender where he said, I can't do this. I'm not walking away from my wife. We're going to go do our own thing.
Which is a shame, because I think he's one of the few characters that has depth and noticeable character flaws, like Gunther. Like Gunther is the bully that's afraid of his own blood and afraid of severe injury. That's inevitably interesting if you dig deeper than that. But they always kind of trot him out to, all right, let him beat up the old guy and get beat by our next good guy.
And see, I liked Cross when he had the faction and he was the bad guy. I think that's what drove me to liking Cross, and I'm kind of not liking him as much now that, you know, the fans are chanting him. I'm like, that's not the Cross I want, you know?
You know, it's funny. We're seeing the wrestling fan really start to get behind heels more than they do faces, right? Because I mean, you take Dominic Mysterio, Karrion Kross. I mean, I guess you could really argue John Cena, because even when John Cena was a heel, it didn't work because they were still cheering him.
Well, it's funny. It's funny how they flip it on its head right now. When you look at the factions, the evil faction of, I forget what they're called,
Judgment
Rollins and the
Day,
Bronze and all
The
that.
Vision.
The Vision,
But
is what they're calling
as
themselves.
opposed to the four-man tag matches that have to go against them, but name your people as Roman Reigns, LA Knight, CM Punk, Jey Uso. The bad guys have teamwork, friendship, cooperation, loyalty, and these 4 guys who are supposed to be all the good guys can't trust each other.
Can't work together.
And it's going to be set up perfect when they break them off.
And I have to agree.
And I think it's coming
Inevitably when it
sooner
happens.
than later. I'm starting to think the more that we see the Braun standoff, or when he shakes his head, when he, you know, and even with Bronson Reed, you know, he's made comments a few times recently. Oh, you know, when I was doing tsunamis on Seth Rollins, I don't think it's going to last very much longer. And I think Heyman goes with Braun, whether it's both of them or just Braun. I think it's coming soon.
Seth can handle himself, as
Exactly.
we've seen, and he's an amazing wrestler in all that he does. I mean, he had everybody believing he was injured for over a month. So it really, where they go with that storyline is up in the air. I have no idea, but
it'll be fun.
It's going to be a great
And we're
time
seeing
to
more
see.
Steiner math, which I love.
Then if this entire thing full circle here with Naomi, if she is pregnant and she has to vacate the title, obviously I would think that we're going to get a 3-way between Io, Stephanie, and Rhea.
I would imagine, but I would just rather see them go Bret Hart, Stone Cold, Rhea, Io Sky, hour-long match.
Just let them do
give
the
me
Iron
two
Man.
Man. They're going to be all-time
When's
matches.
the last time we've seen an Iron Man match?
Yeah,
that's the last
I
time
don't think
saw
anybody wants to do 30-minute matches anymore.
Yeah.
Well, it was an
look-
hour, wasn't it, in the beginning?
Well, no, I think the Shawn Michaels Bret Hart one
That
was
was
an hour.
Yeah.
insane.
I think
For
they did
sure.
a couple of them.
Yeah, but the ones after that, I think they lowered to 30 minutes.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure. Like the most modern ones have been. I don't think anybody's gone an hour.
Not a
in-
long time.
But you got some
decades.
upcoming shows?
I do. So I'm in Hanford on the 26th. I don't know if we carry all the way out there. You'd mentioned Tehachapi, August 30th. We're doing a Marley's Much charity show. So that'll be for a
Nice.
really good cause.
Cool.
It'll be really nice. And then hopefully the whole month of September, I'll be going back and forth to San Francisco for the San Francisco comedy competition. So
Sweet.
if it goes well, I'll be there all month. If it goes poorly, I'll be crying with you all September. September.
I just
12th.
recently read that not Chris Rock, Kevin Hart is doing a new comedy type battle show, which they've tried a couple times with comedy shows when it comes to battling
Like Yo Mama jokes, or are we talking?
I
like,
guess it's some new series that's starting
They need
to.
to bring
It's
that show
coming up
back. I
on
miss Yo Mama.
Netflix,
Wow.
and I don't know how it'll work.
I will not be involved. I am a much
Aw.
I'm a much better comedian than networker, so
Yes, yes.
I will not be involved.
That's
Well, we'll share the info. Is there tickets still available for the Marley Mutt show?
Oh yeah, I think there are. They're available on Eventbrite too. I was just checking that out. So get them all you can because those are going to move fast.
And what are
Well-
you guys building the money for with Marley? Are you guys just looking for donation funds and whatnot?
Yeah, all proceeds. I think all proceeds from the show go to the organization, and it really is a great, wide-reaching one.
I
Yeah.
love that group, and so we just don't bring in dogs and get in for free.
I think that. Well, I've already been asked by my fiance if there will be adoptable dogs at the show, so I may be going alone because I don't want to film as much as I love them. I have no more room in my home.
You're gonna come out to the parking lot with a car full of dogs.
I'm telling you, she tries to adopt an animal every 4 hours.
Uh-huh.
It's a new animal and a new knick-knack from Home Goods about
Well,
every 90 minutes.
My
I'm
wife
running out
is
of
with the
square footage.
cats. My wife is with cats, and luckily, when we met, my son was allergic. And 3 or 4 years later, he's not allergic
Oh,
anymore.
no.
And she brought in two
I mean, good.
cats.
I mean,
and
good. I mean, good for your son.
Now we have
I was
4
gonna
cats.
say, wait, I was
I'm
just
like,
there the other day. You have a cat. What are you talking about?
we got cats in every corner of this house. But we appreciate the time. Hopefully, we'll get you in before you take off to San
Oh, yeah.
Francisco.
Count me in.
And we'll continue to pump up the show. And we'll see you in a couple weeks.
Thanks as always. Great hanging with you.
Absolutely. We got to take a break, pay some bills. This is the Early Bird Special right here on 101.1 FM, 1230 AM, ESPN Bakersfield. Welcome back.
Shout out to our boy Chris Fell. Check him out on Instagram, Facebook. His reels with his wife are hilarious. Just look up Chris Fell comedy and check out his show coming up at the end of the month out in Tattoo. We'll share the information, and it's for a good cause.
Over there. Those competitions are live. That'd be kind of fun to see. I would assume some of the best comedians in the area, or at least in California, are going to be a part of it. But before we get to some major story of the day, which is Michigan's fine being brought down for this whole sign stealing situation, let's wrap up our fantasy football running backs and our sleepers. We'll give you hours, then we'll read your text messages and give out some tickets here before we get to our final story of the day. Personally, my sleepers for the year for you to look out for at the running back position, I got Tank Bigsby at coming in first. Last year, splitting carries in Jacksonville, Tank did very well, and honestly, he had moments of looking better than the starter. I think there's a lot of question marks this year when it comes to Travis Etienne. I'm not sure if his longevity in Jacksonville is going to be coming up here, but it is definitely a question mark. So I would look out for Tank Bigsby potentially to be that flex player you could pick up late in the draft, or even pick up first week in free agency. So that's a good one for me. Do you want to go down all of them, or you want to give yours first? And my next two, I got J.K. Dobbins. J.K. Dobbins going in with Denver. I think everybody forgets how good of a season he had last year with Harbaugh. I think Sean Payton plans to continue that. Sean Payton in his offenses has always had a sustainable run game as well. You go back to the Saints days when he had Mark Ingram, Reggie Bush, Deuce McAllister. I mean, it goes down the line. It is really one of those situations where I think that J.K. Dobbins is going to benefit from that, and going with somebody like Bo Nix, who is getting nothing but positive reviews from opposing teams. People are really starting to say that Bo Nix is taking that step forward. So I think that you could really look at it and see that J.K. Dobbins can continue the success he had with LA last year over in Denver. And then my last one is my first handcuff of the year. Rachaad White and Bucky Irving together in Tampa Bay could be a really good 1-2 for you. I would still get one of the top 10 running backs that we mentioned earlier if you're going to go this route. But if you're somebody that likes to run 3 running backs in a game, you can't go wrong with somebody like Bijan Robinson in the first round, and then Rachaad and Bucky paired together at your 2 and flex positions.
That's a good question. I'm going to ask is, do you get both of them?
Sometimes you have to. Like, honestly, throwing this out there, Tyler Algier and Bijan Robinson is another really good handcuff together. Because
I just can't pull myself to do that.
If you have a top 10 run game in the NFL, it benefits from getting both of the running backs that contribute.
Of course,
to that,
it's just different strategies. I've done that early in my fantasy career, and sometimes it bites you in the ass when that team is not as one game they have 4 touchdowns on the ground and you're like living life perfect, and the next week they go away from running as much, or they go up against the top rush defenses. Right. But my 3 sleepers, number 3 would be Aaron Jones out in Minnesota. That's a good one. We're kind of still waiting to see the verdicts out for J.J. McCarthy, but I do like Aaron Jones, and I think that Minnesota defense is going to just go hand in hand with that offensive. With Minnesota, they've got 2 great receivers, 3 if you want to add one of them, but I think Aaron Jones is a solid running back and a good sleeper. Number 2 would be Kenneth Walker in Seattle. We've heard a lot that Seattle's backs are healthy. You know, Kenneth Walker's had injury.
I'm so
plagued
skeptical
seasons
about Kenneth Walker, man. I've tried a couple. He's kind of feeling like Kyle Pitts to me at points.
Well, he saved me. I picked him up off waiver wires a few years ago, and he saved my season a few times. And then my number 1 sleeper would be Amarian Hampton out in the Chargers. You had him at 9 on your list.
Whoever is the starting running back.
Exactly. I'm going to steer away from Najee just because it's Najee Harris, and I'm nervous about I think this Hampton kid can seriously take his carries away, and we all know the Chargers are going to be run heavy. So I think that would be my number 1 sleeper. He could be, in your top 12 list as well, but I've got Hampton as my sleeper.
I just think the amount of touches that these running backs are going to get in LA in both teams, right? The Rams and the Chargers, you're going to see a lot of running football in LA this year. You really are. So if you're a running back fan, I think that is going to benefit you, or at least you're going to enjoy some football on the West Coast.
So with our listeners texting in this morning, their sleepers, I'll run these down. The first one was Hampton. He said he better be on your list.
Oh, 100%.
The next one is Javonte Williams is his sleeper. Raheem Mostert is a sleeper. He said, I don't think he'll get the yards, but I see him getting a ton of goal line work, and a PPR league, he'll be solid.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, again, Mostert is the only one that the injury plagued seasons have really
fumbling.
kept him out. The fumbles of the last couple of years, absolutely. That's really why he got ran out of Miami. I mean, I think that he has the ability, but he needs to be in an offense that just fits him and can allow him to protect the football.
And if with Pete Carroll, maybe it does. Maybe, maybe with the rookie
I'm not
in there.
sold on this offensive line, man. That's
I
why I
would
have
steer away,
Genty at
personally.
12. I believe Genty could be that guy, but I just don't know if the Raiders have the offensive line that's going to be sustainable to make it happen.
And this one says, hi guys, Carlos here. My sleeper is Jordan Mason. Now on the Vikings, I feel like he will share the load with Aaron Jones, eventually take over. He was a monster when he took over for McCaffrey last year. And the Niners team, big shout out to 24KG.
I could see it, Carlos. When it comes to the Minnesota Vikings, I think they're going to be really pass heavy this year. I think you're going to see a lot of JJ McCarthy and a lot of Jay. Obviously, the Jet is going to be running all over the place. Although Aaron Jones, you're right, the last couple seasons with the Packers hasn't exactly been the most healthy. His style of running doesn't play all year without some sort of lingering injury. So maybe you could see a little bit of a jump up there.
I'm dealing with Jordan Mason. He was a gem for me when I picked him up last year off waivers, but then he got hurt.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, well, then there was a roulette of running backs out of Frisco that I had to rely on with McCaffrey out.
But see, that's I shouldn't say issue, but that's what you're going to see a lot of. I mean, I know you're asking earlier about pairing a lot of these running backs together. Sometimes you have to, because the NFL has really moved to a 2-back system in most cases, outside of teams like Philadelphia and, well, really San Francisco when Christian McCaffrey is healthy. Most teams run 2 running backs. You'll see a power guy and a speed guy. That's just kind of how the league is evolved.
And a lot of teams are running a lot of these running backs into slot positions now. So we'll see a lot of different type of formations this year. I've seen a couple teams with 3 running backs on the field at the same time. So we'll see some difference. I like the sleepers. The last one is Tony Pollard. He said maybe a 3rd to 5th round pick is going to be a highlight of scoring touchdowns.
Absolutely. You know what? I forget Tony Pollard is on that Tennessee team too, and he is the number 1 running back down there. He finds the end zone. That is one thing Tony Pollard does well. So that's a good one. I did not consider Tony Pollard.
I like that one too. I forgot where he went.
Yeah, he's in Tennessee right now. Again, no one knows what the heck is down there right now, right? Like, we don't know what the heck. It's a giant blanket of question marks down there in Tennessee. Is Cam Ward going to work out? Is Tony Pollard going to be a true number 1 running back like he thinks he is, that he really never developed to in Dallas? Can Calvin Ridley finally have that season where he becomes the number 1 receiver in potentially the NFL like everyone thought he was in Atlanta? It's a potential. Like, it could, like we said during our rundowns of the South, Tennessee has the potential to be a pretty solid team. I would say up to 10 wins this year if this works out in their favor. But there's so many question marks that I really don't know what we have down there. And there hasn't been a lot of reporting to tell us otherwise. I don't know exactly what to say. That's
Well,
the hard part of it.
We'll take our final break. We'll wrap up the week with the headline of the day that we haven't really got into, with the suspension, with the sign signal still in. And then we'll get into what we're watching going into the weekend right here on the Early Bird Special, ESPN Bakersfield, 1230 a.m.
101.1 FM. Yeah, it was funny. I sing this song to myself that day. Everything, that those days where just everything's going wrong.
One of the songs that popped up like right on the cue.
I would sit there and be like, well, that's life. Like, not sure what I'm saying. All I think of is this song. But that is life when it comes to the Michigan Wolverines, who are now, well, it's come down on them. There's going to be more penalties to come. But they have been slapped with a significant fine of 20 million, potentially up to 25 and north of it $1 million, plus a couple bans, a couple suspensions for this whole sign stealing situation that was going on with Connor Stallions. For those of you who don't know or don't remember this story, back in the days of Jim Harbaugh, Connor Stallions was a coach with the Michigan Wolverines, or I guess you can call him a coach. He was more of an advisor, but he essentially was there to steal signs from other teams and figure out their plays, help Michigan win football games. That is obviously a big no-no in sports, although it's a gray area, I guess you could say. Some people believe it's just part of the game and it's more figuring out your opponent's strategy against you. Personally, I don't really have an opinion, neither here nor there. I think if you're smart enough to figure him out, good for you. If you're not smart enough to figure him out, just try to figure out the play. But the infraction comes down $20 to $25 million to the school, depending on how well the school does and the Big Ten does in the next year, plus a 2-game suspension for head coach Sharon Moore going into next season. And you get an 8-year, essentially, hiring ban to Connor Stallions and a 10-year ban to one Jim Harbaugh, which doesn't really matter. Jim Harbaugh in the NFL, he don't care to come back to college football anytime soon. Connor Stallions, though, is the one that's really going to get slapped with this, because Connor, now essentially being barred from a job anywhere in college sports, will not be able to be hired back at least for the next 8 years, if ever. Because let's be honest, anytime, this guy gets hired to anybody's organization, first thing you're going to be thinking is, oh, they're cheating.
Yeah, the thief.
And
he was also the one that deleted all those messages, the emails.
He's just there's a whole documentary, I think, or docuseries on Netflix about this that you can watch. It is a fascinating documentary, and the fact that we got all of that is incredible. But yes, this is the penalty for all of that. Probably one of the most significant penalties I've seen brought down by the NCAA Committee of Infractions in a long time. But this is what we're going to be seeing going forward, because they're trying to move away from this whole postseason ban. Because as you noticed, Michigan can still play in the postseason.
That's what I was nervous. I thought they would definitely.
From what we understand, they're trying to move away from that and penalizing people in that way of taking away postseason play from the players. And I kind of get it, because you have to see this more as a player. As a coaching infraction rather than a organization infraction, because I do think that we kind of get away from that a lot when it comes to college sports. A coach comes in, does something bad at UCLA, gets fined for it, or UCLA does, and then he gets fired, goes and coaches at LMU, and he's hunky-dory. He doesn't have to worry about nothing, right? So it's really, who should we be blaming? We got a phone call before we get out of here?
Yeah, we got Daily Davies got some Dodger talk for us.
Good, sir. How are you?
Hey, guys. Good morning. Yeah, very important about what happened with Michigan. Kind of reminds me of when SMU got in trouble quite a few years ago. They started building up
I was thinking SMU or I guess USC with their entire thing with Pete Carroll, you can kind of say is the same when it came to the penalties that came down for all that. But
yeah, there's some parallels. But my thing about Dodgers is the series starts tonight. This is when the season really begins. We got to figure out how we're going to play. If we can play with the Padres and play the kind of ball that we played at the beginning of the year, and get healthy as September and October come, then we're going to decide if we're going to, be ready for the playoff.
I agree with you 100%, sir. I've been saying it all week. Sparky asked me at the beginning of the week, when do Dodger fans start to get worried? I said, if you lose this series against the Padres, if you end up going 2 for 3, or I'm sorry, you losing 2 for 3 against the Padres this weekend, going down 3 games to them, and then having to go back for a 4-game series later on next week, you might be in trouble.
Yeah, these next 10 days are where it's all going to start. And we do not want to lose too much ground. We want to stay even with them and be ready to strike.
Now,
and I don't know what's happened with our closing pitching. Our starters are looking good. We're getting people healthy. And I keep asking, where's my Kike Hernandez, man? He's my spark plug.
well, Kike doesn't get Kike doesn't get going into the playoffs. That's when Kike really starts to play Kike baseball.
Well, both Hernandez kind of took off in the playoffs last year, so we have that to look forward to.
That's very true.
But anyway, guys, have a great weekend. Great shows today, and I'll try to call in again next week.
Thanks, sir. Appreciate you. Have a good weekend. And then before we get out of here as well, since we've already talked a little baseball, we could talk about this before we get out of here, because the Philadelphia Phillies have decided they're going to stick with a 6-man rotation, at least for the next week, with Aaron Nola coming off the IL. At this point right now, I'm actually okay with it. For those of you who are wondering, being a Philly fan, I think this is the perfect time to do that. Philadelphia has a pretty solid lead over the Mets right now, and it allows your pitchers to get an extra day of rest. Honestly, with the way things are shaking up, I don't think you really want to shoot for those seasonal awards, although nice. I know there's 2 Philadelphia pitchers going for the Cy Young this year. I would love to see either of them win it. Don't get me wrong, but we're trying to win World Series here.
Yeah, there's a little more important things going on.
So I think, personally, just an outside looking in, 6-man rotation to end the year is a beautiful thing. You can figure out which 3 pitchers are going to be leading us into the playoffs and hopefully to that World Series. Everybody goes in healthy. Everybody goes in rested. Everybody's happy, and we're ready to go for the playoffs to take down the bloody blue Dodgers and anybody else that gets in the way.
And my Mariners got to beat the hell out of these Mets. I know they've been on a losing streak,
and then you have to deal with us on Monday.
Beat the hell out of them. So
sorry,
I'm
buddy.
Looking forward to that. What are you watching this weekend?
That is a dang good question. Triple Mania is this weekend for you wrestling fans. AAA has their huge PLE this weekend, which you can catch on the WWE YouTube channel. If I'm not mistaken, should be completely free for you. It'll feature a main event, which should be a lot of fun for you guys who are big WWE fans. It'll be El Grande Americano, Dragon Lee, Dominic Mysterio, all taking on Vikingo for their main championship. It should be a lot of fun to watch. So that's probably where I'm going to be at. What about you?
And if you're a big Raiders fan, we'll have the Raiders-Niners game tomorrow starting at 1:00. Really just catching up. I want to see this Willy's Wonderland show that Hop was telling us about.
I remember hearing that, and honestly, I'm very curious myself. He said it was like Five Nights at Freddy's, and although I didn't play the video games, I'm not kind of solid fan of the movie. So we'll see how it is. Everybody have a good weekend. Join us back here 7 to 9 as always. Until then, we got to get out of the way for the great Rich Eisen or the Miz. Not sure which. Sparky, let's get out of here.